Hi there. My name is Michelle Nicolo Prentice, and you're listening to Mama's Lullaby podcast, where we celebrate you and your journey to and through motherhood, the good, the hard, and the scary, giving you a place to be nurtured and mothered. You deserve it. Welcome. Hey guys, it's Michelle. Please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe so we can keep you up to date on all the latest podcasts. Welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michelle Nicolo Prentice, and this is Mama's Lullaby podcast. I'm so glad you decided to tune in. I'm here today with my good friend Bree Jewell. She is a hypnotherapist. We're going to talk about some really cool things today. And my adopted son, BJ, Kevin Jennings, he is helping me with this podcast, helping me co-host, and asking really great questions, which I love so much about your brain. It's amazing. Today I wanted to have Bree on because I've been working with Bree with hypnotherapy. She's been working with me, and then I've been working with her with my tapping that I do, the faster EFT. So we've been trading out with each other. It's been amazing. And anything that has to do with the subconscious mind, I really love. I love, that's how we, get to the good stuff. But I wanted to have this conversation because I think for my goal with Mama's Lullaby is to really help give some ideas to moms on how they can take the best care of their mental health or emotional health, and just maybe give them some ideas of things maybe you may have not heard of or don't know much about. And that's why we asked Bree to be here.
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Mom. And I couldn't agree more. But I think more than anything, again, I'm honored to sit here at this table. And I want to let you know, for those who are new here, we really have two big goals for Mama's Lullaby podcast. One, we celebrate every journey of motherhood. Yeah. We don't care how you got there. We don't care. We want you to feel celebrated in your journey as your journey goes. The second thing we want to do is we really want you to create a place where you can be nurtured and mothered, right? That just because you are a mother doesn't mean you no longer desire or need mothering. And that matters to us. And so that also sounds just like today's topic, where maybe you need some tools to continue mothering yourself regardless of the mothering you are able to receive. Mm-hmm. And that might look like you having a toolkit to tap into. In fact, the entire Mama's Lullaby, project started with your vision to create lullabies for moms.
Correct.
Right? And that was a belief that we could empower you with a certain level of musical therapy, mm-hmm. Right? And giving a place to create an environment that you can relax in and enjoy. And we do believe in the power of music, mm-hmm. to provide places of healing and restoration. But there's more that can be done. And so with a person like Bree, we get to explore what that looks like to go a bit deeper, even beyond what you might naturally receive from music, to address let's say the programming that you are operating from, and how you can address it, which is really powerful, because I know plenty of mothers that I've heard, who are my personal friends, who have heard talk about their frustrations with seeing themselves parent like the mother they didn't want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I've heard plenty of them say, I nailed that situation and I never thought I would nail it, right? So there's sometimes, I think, sometimes people may or may not know how to do more of what they enjoy doing, right, as much as they may not know how to stop doing what they don't want to do.
Correct.
And because I know nothing about motherhood, they said, he's so ignorant, he's going to ask amazing questions because he knows so little. And so I am not here to tell you how to mother. I'm only here to ask all the questions that a person who knows nothing about motherhood will probably ask, which will hopefully give you lots of information because I know so little. So Mom, tell us a bit more about Bree. You talked a little bit about that, but maybe Bree, why don't you tell us about yourself? How about that? And then we'll dive into a few questions.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll say how I started to get into hypnotherapy is because I personally was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease and co-infections in 2012. I had to retire from my husband and my business in order to get well. And so I've been on this personal journey of transformation myself for 12 years. And I mean, like, I've just learned so much. And when you learn all of these tools, then the next thing you want to do is share them with everybody.
Yeah.
And so that can be annoying sometimes, especially for the people around you all of the time. They're probably sick and tired of hearing about it. But when hypnotherapy came across my radar, I had read a ton of books about it years ago, and they were so helpful to me. And I was so fascinated with it. But I just thought I didn't have the necessary. I don't know what I thought I didn't have. I had ideas in my head about what it was really about, and that they were untrue. And so when it came across my radar again a few years ago, I just instantly was like, oh my gosh, this is the way that I'm going to teach people how powerful they are. And I jumped in with both feet, and here we are.
That's awesome. Well, with that being said, I said before we start recording, and I want to make it clear, many of us who are listening do know very little about hypnotherapy. We have preconceived notions of magicians waving clocks in front of our eyes,
Making you
and
cluck like a chicken.
then making us do things against our will. So for the sake of this conversation, would you mind defining hypnotherapy from your perspective? And what I'm going to ask you to do as a listener or viewer is, for the next 30-ish minutes, let's just all agree that whatever Bree says next is what we're going to use in this conversation as the definition of hypnotherapy. All right? So whatever you've got before, just kind of put it to the side temporarily. And why don't we hear your definition of hypnotherapy?
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, it's actually a self-improvement, educational, self-empowerment process that helps people gain access to their own internal resources in order to facilitate change. So move beyond limiting beliefs, fear-based programming, motivation. You can literally use it for accelerated healing. That's probably a whole other conversation to get into, but just so many things. I'm sure people have heard that it's used for weight loss and smoking cessation and things like that, but test taking, job performance, we talked about limiting beliefs. I mean, I think limiting beliefs and fear-based programming is a really big concept that covers
really is. It's
almost
huge.
everything, probably.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And is hypnotherapy? You use the definition of me. You said it essentially it's meditation, and you had some extra verbiage there.
Yeah, so we start out with a goal, something that somebody wants to achieve, and then basically it's meditation with affirmations and visualizations, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between something real or imagined. So if we imagine ourselves having already achieved our goal enough times, it has to align, our imagination has to align also with our subconscious programming, which is why we work on that too. But then the subconscious mind thinks it has already happened or acts as if it has already happened. And
Can you give an example of what subconscious programming might look like?
oh yeah, let's see. This is kind of I use this example all the time in my consults, and I need to come up with a better example, but when you're little, say you have an older brother that constantly calls you dumb, you know, or stupid, and so because between the ages of in the womb until we're 7 to 11 years old, we don't have a conscious reasoning mind. We don't have any defense against that programming. We're literally walking around like little sponges downloading programming until the age of between 7 and 11. So if someone continually repeats that phrase to you, you get programmed to think that you're stupid, possibly.
Yeah.
No, that's powerful. I have a selfish question. Because my daughter's 8 years old right now, and so I'm curious. Is there a way to extend that time? So let's say my daughter picked up some programming early right now. I'm like, oh man, I would love for us to be able to attack that directly. Is there a way to, to know if it's closed or open at that point? Or it's like, no, you kind of do the best you can as a parent.
Well, I think you can always change. I grew up, excuse me, hearing a leopard doesn't change its spots, and things like that.
Right.
Well, you can't change anyone else for sure. But I'm a personal walking, talking testimonial that you can change. I've changed myself and my life significantly with these practices. So you just start now. Start where you're at.
I love that. Okay.
You can program good things into your kids.
And that's what I was getting at. I mean, I'm getting that. Like,
yeah.
You know, but when I hear, I think some people who might be a little quick to latch into a fact,
right,
can say, well, my daughter or my kid's already 12.
Right. So we just start learning how to reframe. We learn how to reframe, reprogram. And so any of those little negative programs, or maybe you hear your children starting to repeat phrases they've heard you say that aren't exactly things that you think are positive or good for them, healthy for them, then you just start teaching them how to reframe. You start reframing and you start teaching them how to reframe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. Okay. So we want to make sure we're serving all of the, not just me, the host here, trying to get free parenting advice, but I do want to make sure we're asking for the moms who are saying this. Okay, well, that's great, and I would love to help my kid have better programming than me, and have awesome, empowering programming, but I also want it for myself.
Yeah,
I would love to feel and give myself what I didn't have. Where do we start?
Yeah. So as far as like, when you say where do we start, like session wise, what that looks like if you want to do, or if you want to learn self-hypnosis?
Well, I'm even just saying from the principles of alone. I mean, I would say you can take it in any direction you want to. I think it may be something as simple as, well, how do you want to be different? You know, but I think for many of us, we're probably saying to ourselves, I don't even know what my programming is, honestly. I just know there are parts of it that I probably want to address, but I don't even know my full programming. I'm fish in water a little bit.
Yeah, of course. You don't always know your program.
Yeah, no, that's true. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Until we know it. You know, for me personally, it was a big kick in the teeth getting sick and having to give up the career that I thought I was going to have for the next, until I retired. And so sometimes it's a life event happens, and sometimes, I don't know, people will just think, geez, there's got to be a better way. Mm-hmm. And I started learning to meditate. I started going to a Buddhist meditation center just completely by accident, actually, reading books. And then, you know, here we are talking about these things out loud so that we can share this information with people and let them know there are things out there that can help, like hypnosis.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say this. So when people hear the word hypnosis, it scares a lot of people.
Yes.
But I want you to realize something. We are in and out of hypnosis all day long. If you're not in the moment right now, you are in hypnosis. You're thinking about the past or you're thinking about the future. You're not in the moment. That is a hypnotic state.
Yep.
That's all it is. It's just kind of being on auto.
When you're driving home on autopilot, you're driving
right.
in a hypnotic state.
Exactly.
You've done it so many times before.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it.
So many things and drive at the same time. Talk on the phone, drink a drink, and still somehow get home.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So just don't be afraid of the word, because, you know, we are all in and out of hypnosis all the time. It's just, learning this, how this brain that we have, that we got for free, given by our creator, how it works, and then how to work with it, so that we can, if whatever's might not be working in our lives, whatever, when someone comes to me for a session, the first thing I'll say to them is, what are you experiencing in your life that you don't want to experience anymore?
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of know where you're programming, or what things you just want to shift and change a little bit, you know?
Yeah, what's not working for you? Yeah. Thank you for bringing us all around to that answer to that question. That's what you're asking. Literally, what's not working for you?
Yeah. I love that. So here I am. I'm listening, and you say what's not working for me right now, and my mind probably has thousands of things. But for those who, let's just kind of find the one thing for now that's maybe the loudest that's not working for you. Mm-hmm. You're part of the audience here, all right. And now I have that thing in my mind that's just not working for me. What do I do now?
And then we're also going to ask, what do you want instead? Mm-hmm. So how does it manifest in your life? What are you experiencing? And what do you want instead? How do you want to feel instead? And then those are the things we're going to program. What's the single most important action step that you need to take? We'll write a suggestion around that. And so the suggestions, the imagery will all be either baby steps to that goal, because sometimes it takes a little bit more time and you want to keep things realistic, or the subconscious mind will argue against a suggestion sometimes. It'll be like, yeah, well, for me personally, I've literally had that happen where I've had suggestions written when I'm doing my own hypnosis with my hypnotherapist, and I'm in hypnosis and I'm like, yeah, that's never going to happen. So, you can adjust and correct for all of that. But yeah, we make it realistic and maybe take baby steps toward the goal and figure out how to make things work better.
Yeah, I love that.
And give you control, give your mind back control, and to just show you how to mobilize those inner resources.
Now, Mom, I'm going to ask you a question that's fairly vulnerable.
Yeah.
Is there an example, maybe a small one, that you're comfortable sharing that you have worked through? Okay, well, hey, I identified this thing I wanted that wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
And then I made this, I wanted to work instead. Because I think having Bree's information right next to an example
Correct,
might feel
absolutely.
really great. So,
100%. I am an open book.
So on those first 2 steps, what comes to mind for something you already identified wasn't working, that you wanted to feel different about maybe in the past?
Okay, so the first thing that we worked on with me was exercising and taking care of myself, making time to do it.
Okay.
Because, you get in a pattern. You get up, you go to the bathroom, you look at your phone, you go in the kitchen, you make your coffee, you have your routine that you do. And what I wanted to do is change that routine up so that I made the things that I wanted to do every day, like meditate, pray, exercise, first thing in the morning, right? I wasn't doing it. I knew I wanted to do it, and every morning I had the same thought. I need to go do it, but I want to go to it, and I just didn't do it. So that was the first thing we worked on, and she asked me a lot of questions, and she created this audio for me. And she
pause.
Yes.
I want to make sure, but I love that. I think that's an example of like, I want to do this and I want a different routine.
Yes.
So let's actually, before you jump into that part, Bree, jump back in. So now that we have what's not working and we want to change, and we might even have some initial steps, what does that next is the journey look like for us? You talk about affirmations. I want to make sure we can hear the process before we hear the example.
Okay.
Literally, like, so as she was going to go into, so in a first session, we're going to do an interview portion, and it's going to be super simple. I mean, we talk a lot, and then it's going to be literally write a few simple suggestions and an action step imagery and imagery of the goal having already been achieved. And we're going to go over those suggestions and imagery together to make sure that I'm using her words, that they make sense to her, and she's going to approve all of that before we even enter into hypnosis. So speaking earlier about people thinking they were going to lose control, or you can make them do things that they don't want to do. None of that is true. If that was true, hypnotherapy would be effective 100% of the time. So, and obviously, like anything else, it's not. But yeah, so everything gets approved outside of hypnosis, and then there's an induction and a deepening, and the suggestions and imagery are offered. And there's also a technique called auto-suggestion. So I have the client repeat the suggestion several times, feeling the vibration of their vocal cords and stuff resonating through their body. This is a powerful tool for anchoring that suggestion into the body. And that's it. Count out.
And then you make a audio
Yes.
that I listen to as I go to sleep every night.
Wow.
So just kind of go.
Is that you speaking or is that Bree speaking?
It's her speaking, but I have made my own as well.
That's awesome.
So you can make your own as well.
Yeah, you can make your own. And I teach people in the very first session self-hypnosis, because the idea is that you want to give them the tool to have for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so if, I'm not looking for someone to need me forever. It's, let's show everyone how to do this and spread the word. Like, we're not hoarding this information for ourselves. We want everyone to have it.
So I'm gonna repeat that back so I make sure I understand. Okay, so I've got what was not working. I've got what I want to change, how I want to feel, etc. And then you walk me through creating a visual for that, and then also words, maybe affirmation that can connect with that visual.
Yeah.
Well, I would have a recording of you and myself working through that possibly, but we agree on that before I actually enter into hypnosis. So you can actually first start the process of the program replacement.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And while in hypnosis, people typically feel physically relaxed and mentally present. So they hear everything. Yeah. There's no loss of consciousness or loss of anything. Like, and if people do have experience meditating, it feels like you're in meditation. Except cool. We just add that extra step.
That's really cool. I heard a coach or consultant say, you have to believe differently before you can behave differently.
Yes.
Would that be a way of describing a bit of what you're doing through hypnosis?
That's pretty much exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. That's really cool. So for many of us, it sounds like what hypnotherapy will give us a chance to do is to address, let's say, unhealthy programming as we discover unhealthy programming.
Yep.
So it's not you're not coming in to excavate every negative thing I've ever had and just do essentially like a program transplant.
Right, no. And clients come in and you ask them to say, basically in one sentence, what is your goal? Because it can get tangential, but we want to stay focused and stay focused for as long and as many sessions are necessary to deal with that one issue. We can work on other things separately, but it also has a cascade healing effect. So when you work on one problem, sometimes other problems resolve along the way.
Wow.
If you think of it as the first time something happens that causes trauma for you, and then anytime you've experienced that emotion again or that physical sensation, think of it as the first time is a root, and then every time you experience that, you grow a branch.
Yes.
Right. So when you rip the memory out or the issue out by the root, of course, all the branches die. So anything connected to that, any resource or reference connected to that specific thing is going to fade away as well. So which is amazing.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor for that. Actually, I'm gonna steal that.
You can have it.
Love that. So let me jump to a question that's less of the process and just more of like, why aren't we all just doing this? I mean that like in both maybe a philosophical way, but maybe also in a literal way, right? I mean like we all want to feel better. We all spend lots of money on things that make us feel better, even if it's like buying ice cream and cookies. And so we all have no problem trying to spend money to make ourselves feel better. So why are we not doing this?
I mean, I think people it's still not mainstream, but it's becoming more and more mainstream and popular. And I think it's important to do these kinds of things to demystify this stuff for people, because people do have negative connotations about hypnotherapy and meditation too. I can't tell you how many times people say to me, "Oh, I don't know how to meditate. I can't shut my brain off." Well, you can't shut the brain off. You get better at having moments, I think. I mean, unless maybe monks do literally learn how to shut their brains off. But I have read a lot of texts about this also and studied yoga as well. And it's not for you to really shut the brain off. It's for you to actually start to notice your thoughts in one part of the process, so that you notice which of these thoughts are even real, which of them are mine. Do I even believe this about myself? And you notice your inner critic. And then through that process, you have moments of stillness and quiet. And so the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
It achieves the same, results.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Mom, as a person who's going through this, and I'm not trying to just say, I think you're open book. but there's a reality of confronting parts of your past in programming and all and how it comes to be. How have you reconciled, maybe after hypnotherapy, the fact that you inherited or dealt with some programming that might have affected your past, right? So you got these decisions from your past that still don't go away because you've changed your future. You can celebrate the fact that, wow, this is working. But there's still like a, doggone it, I still have plenty of years where I've had pain off of this programming.
Well, yeah, I think the thing you have to remember is when you are moving into what you want more of, you realize it's like part of what happens is you go, oh, I realize the brain, the subconscious does not know time. It doesn't know what's true, like she said, what's true, what's false. A picture we hold in our mind, a memory we have, the subconscious thinks it's really happening because it's being held. You can see it. That's why you can still feel things. If you think of something that happened 20 years ago, you can still feel it. It's like, ugh, I don't want to think about it. It makes me sick. It's because the subconscious is going, oh, that's still happening because you're holding the picture and it's like a program running in the background of a computer.
Wow.
So when we take that and we talk to the subconscious and we say, oh, that's not happening anymore. That's not real anymore. And this is what we're choosing to put in place. Then it's no longer there. So you know what happened. It's like, oh, I know what happened, but there's no jolt to it. That's the difference. It doesn't have any power anymore. It's like scratching a record. You can't play it anymore. So you kind of scratch the record so you can't keep playing the same record, the same picture over and over and over again. You create a different picture.
Yeah, Bree.
Well, what was the initial question exactly again?
I was just curious about how we reconcile. You confront your previous programming. You're replacing that programming, and then I still have to, deal with the fact that I'm so grateful for my future, but still disappointed that I've maybe lost time off of that bad programming, lost a relationship from that bad programming, affected my kids because I might have changed my programming now, but I'm just still frustrated that it took this episode for me to hear from Bree to finally say, doggone it, I'm going to do it. And then I do it. And I'm still like, crap, I still lost some of those really pivotal years.
Well, I mean, there's nothing we can do about the past. All we can do is move forward. So we have to forgive ourselves. And then we have to work in hypnotherapy on forgiveness. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Because we really do truly have to forgive ourselves.
That's right.
And just, you can't live life looking in the rearview mirror. It doesn't, then you just end up recreating those same old programs again, that same wiring. And so you have to just be like, dust yourself off and onward and upward.
I love that. No, and I think that's a powerful thing to say. You can work on changing your behavior. We're going to probably have to work on forgiving yourself as well.
Absolutely true.
That's a helpful thing for us to understand.
And think about this. We all have this inner child inside of us, right? The little child that we were, that little child still lives in all of us. So when we beat ourselves up, imagine you are looking at a 3 or 4 or 2-year-old or whatever, and you're saying what you say to yourself to that little child. You would never do that.
Yeah.
And that's part of how I think about forgiving myself. As I look, I'm like, oh, that's just, it's still in there, and that's me, and I did the best I could with what I knew and what I had.
Yeah.
Well, and that's exactly what you just read my mind. Every parent, this is never about blame. Every parent does the best they know how to do with the tools they have at any given time. And so we all make mistakes parenting. We all think about the things we could have done differently or done better. Our kids will do that. The circle keeps on turning, but we just hope that through these processes and these self-help and self-empowerment tools, we create better futures for our kids and ourselves. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do, is just make change.
And then your children see you working on yourself, and that becomes, that's what they did. And so that becomes another thing that you pass on to your children. It's okay. You're going to make mistakes. It's normal. It's natural. And here's something you can do to help, if you want to change and shift, you can do this too. You have that much power inside of your own life.
And if we are all products of our programming, our parents were also products of their programming, who were also products of their programming. And none of us knew until we knew that there was something we could do about it.
That's right.
And it's not, self-improvement is a lifelong process.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in looking back and thinking, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda, because we could do that until we die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And missing out on our daily life.
Yeah. I love the idea of reframing it as a parent. One thing I want to have differently is I want my kids to have the tools on how to navigate their mistakes.
Yes.
And I'm teaching, and I'm going to learn how to navigate my past and my mistakes, knowing I want that same for my kids.
Right.
And that can be where my focus is versus how can I become perfect?
Yes.
Well, because they watch you, and like my goddaughter and her mom, she struggled with her weight, my friend, and she would always talk poorly about how fat she was, whatever. And then when her daughter was growing up, she started doing it, and my friend would say, "Don't talk like that about yourself. You're beautiful." But she saw it. She watched her mom do it. It's what we do, and we don't think our kids are paying attention to everything, right? So it's fine, it's a lesson. But my point is that if you can also teach them this idea that yes, mommy, I have been really mean to myself because that's what I didn't know any better, but now I'm learning some other things, and now we can learn some other things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the question I should have asked you earlier, Bree, and I'm sorry I got to it late. But you talked about how you were going through a lot with your diagnosis and what you're experiencing, and you're like, hypnotherapy helped me get through that. I'm sure many people, when they hear that, I'll share what I thought. It's like, first of all, that's awesome. Second thing I thought was, well, how does it help me deal with something that won't go away? It's one thing, like something say, I want to change my behavior. Something say, Bree said it helped her with something that literally won't change. I mean, like I can't make myself not have this. So, or maybe you're saying that you can, but so I'm curious to hear how it manifests stuff in your journey. What you didn't want to have anymore, what you wanted to be different, and then how you were on the other side of all of it.
Yeah, so I think there's this statistic that something like 95% of doctor visits are caused by stress.
Wow.
So don't quote me on that.
Sure. It could be 15%. It's still a wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a huge number. And so for me, what I realized with all the research and everything that I did with chronic Lyme is I had Lyme probably since I was small. But I never had any effects of it because my immune system was working appropriately. Like with many viruses, like Epstein-Barr virus and anything like in herpes virus family, or there's so many unnamed viruses even. And so then I had a stressful event happen in my life. And over the next, I guess it was 12 years, symptoms started accumulating.
Wow.
And then my husband and I started a business, and that was very difficult. And so the stress got more and more and more. And then also, emotionally, I myself was in a lot of victim mode. I was never able to stand up for myself my whole life. So I went through a lot of bullying, both at jobs and in school. And I knew that I was the only person that could change this, but I was just like always in my head all the time and just beating myself up all the time. And I really feel like there was a huge emotional component to my getting so ill. I literally was so sick, I thought I was dying. Before I got my diagnosis, I thought I've got cancer or something. And I was 36 years old. So, and so I threw myself into everything my doctors told me to do when I finally found the doctor and got the diagnosis, but also threw myself into changing my mind. I had that moment of like, I can't live this way anymore. And that's when I threw myself into meditation and started reading spiritual texts and just everything I could do to change myself and my life.
Wow. And for you, how did that all play out as far as what you found out was more the mental part versus the true biological, physical part of it all.
Well, so I still have, I still sometimes, over the years, I've tested for positive for, Epstein-Barr flare-ups and things like that. But as of now, 12 years later, and I got well very quickly, to be honest. It only took it may have taken me 2 to 3 years to be like, wait a second, I don't really feel sick anymore. And then after 5 years, I was like, I feel weird telling people I have Lyme disease.
Wow.
And so even to this day, I share my story, but I don't, I'm well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people struggle with these things for years.
Wow.
And I attribute, I love my doctors. They're amazing, but I also think that the added meditation and whatever I was doing for my mind was also a really important part of my healing.
Right, because the mind and the body, you can't
Yes.
separate the two.
Right.
They go together.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions I want to ask you, we kind of get close to the end here. You talked to me about before we started recording, I wanted to bring it up. Just the effects of our programming on our kids, right? And what that might do. You kind of even spoke to it briefly about the fact that, hey, you don't even really have the conscious mind working, from 7 to, but until around ages between 7 and 11. So that means for at least 7 to 11 years, you're operating off of some form of programming. So can you kind of expound upon that idea?
A really great book about this, or a really good explanation if you can get through the first couple of very sciencey chapters. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, is an amazing book and has a lot of information about this. But basically, because we don't have the conscious reasoning mind, we literally, and he calls it an evolutionary tool for tiny humans to learn how to be a part of a family and a community, which is why we learn subconsciously until we're that old. We just watch, we imitate, and it's really a really cool evolutionary, whatever you want to call it, system or tool. But it's also, because we're learning completely, like that computer software is just being downloaded with programs. There's nothing saying, is this true? Is this right?
Do I even want that?
Do I want that? Yeah. Is this what I believe? Is this helpful? Any of that is not going on for those first years.
Wow.
So, and then I lost track of the question.
That makes sense.
Okay, hold up. Let's pick this up and wrap it up. The sun's on your face in a weird way. We can't change that because it's going to look different.
Okay.
So it's just time to
You got it.
pick it back up, and we had a good stopping place.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're picking up the question.
Well, she had just answered.
Yes.
And I lost track of the second part of the question.
Right. So you can pick up the second part.
You got it.
Do you remember what it was?
Give me a second. Yes.
Yes, such a good brain.
I
admire his brain.
astounded.
And this will come together.
Sorry, she was drinking water before. So give me a second.
That's all right.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's like those Chinese karate movies where
And Michelle, look at me. Okay, if you stay there or to this side, you're good.
If I do this, I see. Okay.
All over your nose, yeah. So just for this last little bit.
All right.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Okay, and so Bree, the second part of that question was, well, how do we, now that we know that our child is kind of operating a bit like, just taking in the software, right? How do we kind of disrupt that, right? I mean, so there's a bit of us understanding the impact. Sorry, let me say it again for me. One more second, Mark. You don't mind?
Again?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
You in the clap. Okay, so Bree, that was a great explanation of what's going on. The second half of the question is just us understanding how does that impact play out, and I'm not trying to scare anyone straight here, but what I am saying, I think you brought up, you don't have to go into the whole concept, but you brought this idea of us kind of, we didn't get the programming from 7 to 11, then So I want you to kind of play that out a bit, because I think some people hear that and they're only thinking about their kids' impact and maybe not the ripple effect of how that all plays out.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
yeah. Well, yes. And like you were using the word inheriting earlier, you were saying, oh, we inherited programming. Well, so generationally, this is why cycles continue, right? So if we can break a cycle, an unhealthy cycle, then sky's the limit.
Yeah.
For the ripple effect on that. Though your kids are gonna learn more healthy tools, break unhealthy cycles. You're gonna help them do that, and then in turn, they're gonna create healthier environments for their children, and so on.
Yeah. I heard a quote once that said, if the real impact of your parenting plays out through watching your grandchildren, because so you can watch, and for me that was really very true. I can see my grandparents' parenting deficiencies that they admit, and how they played out through how my parents parented. So I do want to own that. You already answered my question, which was you got to forgive yourself, because I do hear a lot of parents that say, even mom, right? The work mom's done on herself over the last 2 decades. Well, her youngest son is 27, right? So that work started when he was around 17. Right, and so it's like, no, I know you worked before then. But I'm saying, but as far as like the intensity and the intentionality with which you've done the work, and he already had his programming by then. Right, so now you have to watch your 27-year-old work through addressing programming that you have already corrected, but their programming's set, and now it's up to them to confront their own programming.
Yes, and I've told my own stepson these exact words. Yes, I'm like, we did the best we could, man. Now it's your job to deal with that programming.
Yeah,
get to work.
Right. It's like I'm sorry, I didn't know the program I was giving you until it was your program.
Right.
And that's a pretty powerful thing. So I would love if you close. Bree, what I would say encouragement. You give a lot of information. Would you want to give to anyone who is listening or watching, who may be feeling all kinds of things? Maybe for the person who's discouraged, and maybe for maybe one of the part for the person who is like, I'm ready to get going.
Well, for those of you who are ready to get going, I encourage you to just jump in with both feet. And
if they wanted to work with you, where would they go?
To work with me, you can find me on my website, Bree Jewell, hypnotherapy.com. Jewel has 2 L's on the end. Okay. Sorry, that's a mouthful. But also 615-219-9129. All of that information is also on my website.
That's awesome.
And I just... As far as people who are feeling discouraged, this is never about discouragement. This is completely about empowerment and knowing that you can take your power back. And like I would be horrified if I thought that I was discouraging someone, because this is all about just love and helping people.
Yeah.
And being better and growing.
Mom, what about you? So same thing. Someone's hearing this, and someone's saying to themselves, I can't keep going this way. Something's got to change. And then someone else saying, you said what's not working well, and the list is so stinking long that I'm just like, I'll never get through this entire list.
That's right. You will never get through the entire list. So just remember, it's just a journey, and you never get there. It's just a journey. And you just do the best you can, and you just start with one thing. And as you progress, you pick another thing. It's like when you're growing up, you're not thinking about the stages of growing up. You're just going through the process. And it's the same thing. So it's just an evolution in yourself if you choose it. That's all.
And enjoy it. Enjoy the process.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, we encourage you to go to BreeJewellHypnotherapy.com.
Yes. 2 L's. 2 L's.
With 2 L's. And we want you to actually have a chance to connect with Bree if you would like to work and start that journey with someone. I'm assuming it can be done electronic over Zoom and like that too, or have to be in person.
I strictly do Zoom sessions.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
So that means as long as you can speak English or bring a translator, you're good to go.
Yep.
Then the other piece, though, is we want you to actually understand we have every desire to continue supporting you on this journey. So once you go to mamaslullaby.com, I want you to join the email list. We want you to actually stay connected because these are the kinds of professionals we're trying to bring you to have access to on a regular basis, whether it be a new tool you never considered before, or maybe it is an actual individual and a practitioner who you need to come alongside you, provide more support, or maybe you just need a moment of solace with some great music. We want to make sure that you have that, and that's a part of this journey as well. It's not just giving you more to do. Actually, that's the thing we want to do the least. Actually, give you more to do. What we do know with the time you do have, some things are more impactful for you nurturing and caring for yourself than others. And when you do have that moment, we want to give you that actually provides long-term support for you and your family and your journey of motherhood. So, Mom, anything you want to say before we let people go?
Hang in there. It's going to be okay. And like we said, was it Celeste or who said today, this too shall pass. When you're going through difficult times, just know this too shall pass. And things work out. Things tend to always work out.
Yes, indeed. All right, well, Bree, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah,
Thank you
For
guys.
sharing
I
so
appreciate
openly
it
too.
so much.
Absolutely. And we thank you for
Yeah.
listening and watching. And we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of Mama's Lullaby.
Come back anytime.
Mama's